We're recording now. How does it get any better than this? A lot better than this, apparently. Hi, my name's Liam Phillips, and over there in Calgary, I'm in Saskatoon over here, is my host. What's your name again? Jennifer? Oh, yes. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, so welcome everyone to I Ain't Afraid of No Ghosts. What I love so much about that title is that obviously it makes me think right away of the movie Ghostbusters. And there's so much like joy and fun and humor in that movie, like associated with ghosts and entities. So that's fun. And yeah, I did also want to kind of introduce Liam over there. So this is Liam Phillips. He is a Talk to the Entities facilitator, access consciousness facilitator. Kind of what we're chatting about now is Talk to the Entities class. So basically we have some intros coming up, and we wanted to kind of address a couple questions people might possibly have about Talk to the Entities, or any apprehensions or anything they might have. So my first question is, when I first went to go take my Talk to the Entities class, I kind of went into that doubt. And I mean, even this time I did that. I started going into that doubt and that fear of like, why am I choosing this? Like, am I just going to open up like a big can of worms? Like, what am I getting myself into? So can you talk a little bit about, I guess, that fear or that doubt or that resistance that might come up when it comes to entities, or even when it comes to choosing any classes?
Yeah, definitely. In Access Consciousness, most of you know that we've got this amazing tool called Who Does It Belong To, which looks at all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And every time that you have a thought, feeling, or emotion, you can ask that question, who does it belong to? Now, what if some of those thoughts, feelings, and emotions actually belong to entities? That is, people that don't have bodies. I remember the first time I went to a Talk to the Entities class with Shannon O'Hara, like, I don't know, 11 years ago or so. And she had two back-to-back, basically, with 2 weeks in between, and they were intros. And I couldn't go to the first one because there was just so much noise in my head, like, what if I open this can of worms? Exactly. What if I can't clear them? What if I'm going crazy? You know, and all of this fear and stuff was coming up in my reality, all of this doubt. And so I didn't go to the first one. I let the fear and the doubt and all the judgment and all that heavy energy rule the roost. And 2 weeks later, I was in the same position, and then I asked that, who the hell does this belong to? And I realized it was all the entities that were attached to me that didn't want to let me go, to get the awareness so that I could change things and clear things and make my life better, and me be in control, me be the power source for me and my reality. And I went, oh my God. And within 10 minutes of being in the intro, which by that time had gone up like $50 or something from 1 week to the other. So I really raked myself over the coals for not going the first time. Within 10 minutes of being in that intro, Shannon, I asked a question and Shannon asked me a question back. And a lot of that fear around entities just dissipated almost immediately. And for me, I was so grateful, because in that 10 seconds, I started to step into more of who I be and more of my potency. And I recognize that I actually have a capacity with talking with entities. And I have always had that capacity. And once I started to acknowledge that, the spirit world got easier. So, does that answer your question, Jennifer?
That and some.
We've got another entity there pulling all the energy. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, they've been pulling it the whole time. Okay. Well, if you give me 10 minutes to finish this, I'll give you a treat after, okay?
So, how many entities are you aware of that pull energy like kids? You know, they just, the more that you ignore them, the more you don't acknowledge your capacities with entities, the more they push their buttons, just like kiddies. Yeah. And you know, like, and they will push you and push you and push you until you step into your power and potency. And that's not a wrongness on kids, and it's not a wrongness about entities. It's just about what can you receive. Like with kids, they often get rambunctious when you're not being who you be. And it's the same with entities. If you keep ignoring them and they know that you have a capacity to hear them or talk with them or receive them in some way, and you're not doing that, they like to poke you. And one of the ways that they can do that is by using thoughts, feelings, and emotions, because they have this electrical vibration attached to them. So have you noticed that if you don't have a body, you can't really move things around in this reality very well? So the things that you can have an effect on are thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So that's how they often connect with you.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've definitely noticed that with kids, but also, yeah, it's like when I'm trying to like ignore it or resist it, it seems to show up for me as like anger, which is interesting. It's like I'm like irritated and I'm snapping on everybody, and they're like, "Oh, what is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like I'm refusing to be aware of something here, like, which is typically the first question I ask is like, if anything's showing up, is like, what am I aware of here? And then it's like, oh, entity. Okay. Got it.
I see Lisa is nodding her head as she says that too, and I'm nodding my head as well, because I know that when I do like a foundation class, or I talk to more a foundation class, and we're getting to that point where it's the entities section of the class, I start to get more frustrated and angry and uptight, and if I'm walking around shopping centers and stuff like that, that's often an indication that there are a lot of entities trying to get my attention. So yeah, and sadness and moody, yeah. So if that sort of stuff comes up, don't go to the conclusion that it's an entity, because it could be other things, but ask that question, are there entities here? And if it's light, you know it's true for you. And one of the easiest things that you can do is go, back off. Yeah. Like I have to do that in shopping centers or in schools or in hospitals or any place where there's a lot of highly emotional charge or right and wrong. Most countries have these big shopping centres now where they have hardware stores, and in Australia, the hardware store, they're huge, and you buy power tools and all the stuff that you need to build houses with, paints and all of that sort of stuff. And when people go there, the one in Australia is called Bunnings. And when I walk into Bunnings, it's like, and partly that's because there's a lot of people in there going, husbands and wives. Oh, I want the bedroom pink. No, I want it blue. I want this type of shower recess. No, I want this. And there's constant conflict and emotion and fight and judgment about trying to get it right, trying to get the colors right, all of this sort of stuff. And entities love to hang around all of that because there's a charge there, and that's what they love. That's what they can manipulate. So when I walk into Bunnings, I found it the hard way, because I'd walk in there whilst I was building houses and stuff, and I would feel like a complete mess after leaving. And then one day I asked, are there entities here? Oh, yes. So I just I don't actually clear them. I ask them to back off. And then I can find exactly the product that I'm looking for and not go into everybody else's reality or everybody or all the other entities' realities.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it can show up so many different ways for so many different people. Like it can show up as like anxiety, it can show up as like coughing or like allergies and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. I did want to ask you another question, Leah. So, what do you know about what's possible with entities that people may never have considered?
Oh, that's a really good question. And why don't you put me on the spot? Come to a Talk to the Entities class. We do actually have one that is live on the internet on Friday. So if you'd like to come up to that intro, that's fine. We might be able to put that in the chat there somewhere. I'm not sure. But girl, what was your question again? Because I've forgotten it. And you'll have to unmute yourself, honey. Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
I'm psychic, but not that psychic.
Like, what do you know about what's possible with entities that people may never have considered?
A lot. The thing is, like, what is it that you know about entities that you're not acknowledging? And because I could spend the next 3 days talking about what I know about entities. In actual fact, we're just about to go out and do a receiving from nature spirits walk along the Saskatoon River, and so I scoped that out this morning, and so I just lowered my barriers and started to receive from all of the nature spirits, and it was amazing, totally frigging amazing. I found 3 pairs of sunglasses that the nature spirits just kept on pointing out to me. I had this amazing conversation with these 2 twin 80-year-old ladies who were standing right next to these twin trees, and it was like, oh my God, I'm getting the awareness of how nature spirits can talk to us in so many different ways. And then there were minxes jumping out at me, and then I crossed the road and I found this amazing grandfather tree, and it was the first time I've ever seen a hare in my life. I've seen rabbits, I've never seen a hare, and he was like 3 foot tall. He was fucking huge, and because I didn't have my glasses on, I went, oh my God, what is that? Is that some sort of unicorn or something? And it was really fun and very light, and my whole reality opened up. And then I found this shirt today, which was part of that, because when we start to lower our barriers and start to acknowledge what we know, we can receive from entities in a totally different way. You know, maybe even some bling might show up for you if you're really willing to truly lower your barriers and receive from entities. And I guess the thing is, a lot of people have bought the points of view that entities are like Hollywood, and it's not. 90% of the entities that you're going to come across are just people without bodies, and all of you can deal with people who have bodies. They're not any brighter than you. They're no more powerful than you. They're no more conscious than you. They're no more kinder than you. If they were stupid when they were alive, they're stupid when they pass over. It just by passing over does not mean that they make a different choice to be more conscious or more kind or more of a contribution. So you have the body, and that's the most important thing. You have the body, you have the power. And that's why when we have things like entities trying to take over other bodies, which some of them try to do, it's only because the person is allowing it to occur, because they've already decided that the entity has more power than them. That's not true. If you have the body, you have the power, always. And if you know that, there's no demon, there's no entity that can control you in any way. And that's part of the Talk to the Entities intro class, and definitely part of the 2-day beginners class, is getting you to that awareness. Not just cognitively, but what I call from balls to bones, yeah? And you know it. And when you know it, you start to be more of you. And so talk to the entities, facilitation and training and classes is a lot of it is more about you stepping into your power and potency and acknowledging your capacities that you have, rather than talking to dear old grandma that has passed over, although that may well come up in the class. In Japan, I had, luckily enough, I had one of the most foremost Ghostbusters in Japan. And she comes from a lineage that is 1,300 years long. That's the family business of clearing ghosts. And the thing was, she is one of the most powerful Ghostbusters in her lineage ever, and yet still she had points of view about ghostbusting that wasn't true and real, and it was sticking her. And part of that was because her mother was jealous of the power and potency that she had that her mother didn't have, and the capacities that her mother didn't have with ghosts. And so when her mother died, she now was haunting her daughter and making her feel wrong and trying to control her and manipulate her from beyond the grave. And we were able to give her the tools in the Talk to the Entities class to empower one of the foremost entity busters in Japan to change that and have so much more ease in her body and in her life. And now she's a TV star. This is only a year ago. Now she's a TV star. And I said to it, I think you're going to be on TV shortly. And I thought it was going to be because she was going to do, like entity busting on TV, but she's actually in a sitcom. But her whole life has shown up differently. She's now, she came along to a foundation class with me just recently, and she wanted to have a child. She couldn't because she no longer had periods. By the end of the third day of foundation, her period started again. So now she has the possibility of children too. And this is something with the Talk to the Entities, that it can make such a difference in so many areas of your life. How does it get any better than this?
That's cool. Also in basically the invitation to the intro, you were talking about myth busting, like basically busting the myths around entities. So what are some of the myths like about or around entities that you found are basically totally untrue?
Yeah. Well, does anyone have a point of view about entities, or a myth that they've heard, or a truth that they've heard about entities or ghosts? Because I can't think of one right now. My brain has gone somewhere else.
I guess what comes up for me is just like scary movies, and about like people being possessed and like really having no choice or no control or anything like that around like what happens or what shows up, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess about possession.
Possession, yeah, that can occur, but it only occurs to those people that give their power over to someone or something else. So everywhere where you've bought that you are the effect of any entity, will you now destroy and uncreate all of that, please? Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, iron, short boys and beyonds. Hey, look, most people, when you start out on your acknowledging your capacities with entities, the universe is not a sadistic, horrid thing that's going to drop you in the deep end straight away. It's going to usually be kind and caring for you if you're willing to be kind and caring for yourself. So what I found is like, I didn't have demons show up so much in my reality until I was, quote unquote, strong enough to deal with it. So if you're worried about, oh, you know, if I open up these doors, we're going to have to be looking at demons, etc., etc., that's not necessarily true. It's like, usually if something shows up, it shows up because you are powerful enough to change it. Because what I found is most people that I work with are reality changers. Just haven't acknowledged it yet. They're catalysts for a different reality. They're what I call an algorithmic interrupt. That is, they go into places and they interrupt the reality that is holding things in place. And like, that's part of the cool thing about the Talk to the Entities class is that you get the tools to deal with things like demons. And I've had some really, during the class, I will tell you some really funky stories about how demons have literally sat on my chest and held me down. And it wasn't fun at the time. And I used the tool and I changed it, and I stepped up in my power and potency. I've had entities take over my body. And the first time that it occurred was really interesting, because it was an entity that was trying to show me something. And so I've always been very grateful for that particular entity. But at the time, it was friggin' scary. But then afterwards, I recognized the power and potency that I had with it.
Awesome. Does anybody else that's on the line happen to have any questions you'd like to ask Liam? You can put it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask it out loud. And just to let everybody know, I also put the link to the intro class that's coming up online. Any questions?
No questions? Then we might call it a wrap. There's lots of stuff to consider here. I guess one of the biggest myths is that entities have power over you. And I've talked about this for the last 20 minutes, really. So, and we did a clearing, but let's do that clearing again. Everywhere where you have brought the point of view that an entity has more power than you, will you now destroy and uncreate all of that, please? Good and bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, on, short, and everywhere where you're giving your life over to those voices and the judgments of entities and other people, will you now destroy and uncreate all of that, please? Good, bad, right, wrong, pop, popcorn, on, short, boys, and beyonds. And the last one is, if you are considering coming to a Talk to the Entities class, and it is scary for you, contact one of us. You know, like, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it all by yourself. It's like, that's why we're here. All you have to do is ask a question, and usually I'm always willing to give 5 minutes for free. Usually within the first 2 or 3 minutes, we can overcome what's stopping you from having the life that you truly desire. You're not alone. I know you all like to do it all by yourself, but you can actually ask for assistance, and often it can be just one question that would totally change your reality.
Beauty. So how would someone go about contacting you
if you're on Facebook, you can message me, or you can contact me by email, liamrphillips@yahoo.com, or liam@liamphillips.com, or go to my website, liamphillips.com, or go to my Access website, www.accessconsciousness.com/Liam Phillips.
So there's not a shortage of ways
Google me. I don't know. Yeah, or Google another facilitator. I don't care. Well, I do. I want you to come to my class, of course. That's why I'm doing this. But you know, also you've got to choose the person that you feel like, not feel, but is light for you. So because that way it's going to open up more doors for you. Cool. Well, I'm gonna thank Jennifer. She put this together like in 24 hours. So amazing. Like, how does it get any better than that? What a cool entity. And thank you for the people that have come on and contributed your energy to the class. And Lisa, your head nodding up and down has been a great contribution. I love being able to see people. Yeah, and who is that there? Yeah, and Rebecca. That is always a huge contribution. It's amazing. Since we've gone from telecalls to Zoom calls, there's more feedback. It's more fun. So hopefully we'll see some of you on the intro call. Maybe some of you I'll meet in the future, and maybe we can have a big hug, and maybe you can touch my brand new shirt. Cool. Okay, guys, thanks for coming, and we'll post the recording if you've missed it for you, and we'll also put this recording up live on the Talk to the Entity site too. So, Perfect. Catch you later, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.